So hi guys, I've come on video today to show you the different variations of doing a vinyasa. Now vinyasa in Sanskrit is, the word vin means to place and the word yasa means in a special way. Now these vinyasas are done in between a flow, and they tend to go from downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Shavasana, through to plank, Phalakasana, and then we go into different variations. The true variation is we go to Chaturanga, which is low plank. Then we come into our upward facing dog, which is Urdhva Mukha Shavasana. And then we come back to our downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Shavasana. But we do have variations, so we can regress it. So people can still get a flow, even if they have lack of shoulder strength, lack of core strength, to keep them straight. So I'm going to give you quite a few options and a few little tips of how you can move through these vinyasas. So vinyasas are moving with intention, moving with breath. So the breath and the movement happens together. So we're really working with those inhales and exhales. So just a little key point for you, first of all, is I just want to show you what happens within the elbows, because quite a lot people get Chaturanga and plank confused with what sometimes they do in the gym. Now with yoga, Chaturanga is a hovering plank, and if you do it without placing the elbow alignment in the right way, it can actually cause you a little bit of a problem. So if I just show you what happens with your elbows, so usually I'm going to do it with my knees down first of all, because that's easier to show you first off. So when you come forward to a plank position, obviously imagine my legs are out straight. You try and find your shoulders over the heel of the hands. So if you come too far forward, that can actually cause an impingement in your wrist. If you have got wrist issues, you can bring the shoulders a little further back so they're not stacking on top of the heel of the hands. Your choice really, but just don't be too far forward, because that can cause quite a problem in the wrists. So think about these elbows. So I'm going to call the crease of the elbow the eye of the elbow, and obviously the knobbly bit the point of the elbow, so that when I flow you through and show you your different choices of vinyasas, you get where I'm coming from. So at the moment, the eye of the elbow when I'm in plank is pointing inwards. So both eyes of the elbows are pointing towards each other, and the point of the elbow is pointing out. Now, if I was to come down to Chaturanga in this position, naturally what will happen is my elbows will want to go out, because they're in that angle to bend that way. So this is what people get quite wrong. This is what they call a gym push-up. So in yoga, we do it very differently. So you have to think about now turning the eye of the elbow forward and the point of the elbow backwards. So the hands are grounded, and if you just watch what happens with my elbows, I turn those creases forward and the points backwards. So now my eyes of the elbows are facing forward. And what happens then is that allows our elbows to bend backwards rather than out to the sides. So as you lower down here, those elbows will graze the ribs. Okay? So, not the creases of the elbows facing inwards, but you can start at that point when you first arrive in plank. And then as you take the lower either into a hover or to the floor, you turn the eye of the elbows forward and the point of the elbows back. And that will allow those elbows to graze those ribs. Okay, so that is your key point for these elbows. So when I cue, turn the creases of the elbows forward or the eye of the elbow forward, that's when you move them around. So I'm going to give you 4 different variations of vinyasas. I'm going to start with the easiest option first. This is for people who don't have good core strength or don't have good shoulder strength, and they find it difficult to lower in a straight line like plank. So I will be showing you that variation, and that will also have us coming back through child's pose as well to take us back to down dog. So I'm going to face this way of the mat so you can actually see what's happening with my feet and my body. So we're going to find ourselves in downward facing dog first. So start off with having the hands shoulder width apart, stepping both feet back to a plank. Just when you're in plank, make sure those shoulders are either over the heel of the hands or slightly back, depending on the comfort of your wrists, but not too far forward. Once you've found that good position, start to lift the hips to bring you into downward facing dog. So the heels don't have to touch. Try not to fidget with the feet too much. Try and keep those feet a good distance from the hands, because if you start to walk the feet forward so you can get your heels down, that will cause you a problem when you come back forward to plank. It will, as you can see, that brings my shoulders too far over the heel of my hands. So again, align it up, find your plank, feet hip width apart, lift up to your down dog, and that is your true alignment of down dog. Not too short, but in a good position for the hands and feet. So I'm going to take you through the first option of Vinyasa. So your first movement would be coming forward to plank, and that would be on your inhale. So you come forward to plank on your inhale. The next on option 1 is you drop down the knees, but don't move the feet forward. Let the knees just come to the floor. Now this is the cue where you turn the elbows. Turn the eye of the elbows forward, and then on your out breath, slowly let those bodies come to the mat. Untuck the toes here. Push into the hands, come up to a little baby cobra. Release the chest back down on your out breath. Tuck the toes under. Push into the hands, bring the chest back to the thighs in a version of child's pose, Balasana. And then push into the hands and feet, lift the hips and squeeze the heels back. So that is option 1, and that's the drop of the knees, so you take the pressure off the shoulders and you're not having to be too concerned about that core strength. We can build on that later. So option 2 will be when we come down to the floor with our plank. So it has to have a nice long line. I'll show you a few things that tend to go wrong. So stack yourself back up into your downward facing dog again, your Ardha Mukha Shavasana. So step back to plank, check the shoulders are over the heel of the hands, lift the hips, hands are shoulder width apart, feet are hip width apart, trying to encourage the heels as close towards the mat as you can. So next breath in, come forward to a plank position. Turn the eye of the elbow forward and then start to release slowly down to the floor. As you can see, the whole of my body is straight. You untuck the toes when you get there. You push into the hands on your inhale to lift the chest. This is coming up into Ardha Mukha Shavasana, upward facing dog. Your next breath out, you release the chest down, you tuck the toes under, bring the chest back to the thighs. Push into the hands and feet, lift the hips and squeeze the heels back. So I'll show you what tends to go wrong with this one when people are lowering with a straight body. So quite often people come forward to this plank position, they do all the turn of the elbows, and then they start to drop down to the floor like this. Well, this has no strength in the centre of the body. So if you think about that transition forward to plank, you come forward to plank here, turn the eye of the elbow forward, graze the ribs with the elbows, keep the centre of the body in a nice long line as you release down to the floor. Untuck the toes, push into the hands and lift up the chest. You can come as high as you wish, but try not to pinch that lower spine. So really push down with those hips. And then come back to your child's pose, then to your downward facing dog, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. So that is option 2. And that will help strengthen your shoulders and your core. And that can then build you up to taking option 3. So option 3 is classed as the Chaturanga Vinyasa option. So still remembering you're doing that breath to movement. So you come forward on the inhale to plank, you release down either to the floor or hover on your exhale. You breathe in, you lift up the chest, open the chest forward, and either have the thighs away or the thighs on the mat, and then your out breath returns you back to down dog. So keep that breath to movement thought going. So remember, we're moving with intention as well, so keep that core strength nice and strong. So let me take you through option 3. And I will take you through the proper option and then show you what tends to go wrong. So stack up for your down dog again. So make sure the shoulders over the heel of the hands, lift the hips without fidgeting with the feet. Take the gaze back towards the toes. So we're going to flow through the Chaturanga option here. So breath in brings us forward to a plank position. Turn the eye of the elbow forward. Release with a straight body to come to a hover off the mat. Notice where my elbows are sitting, in line with my body. Then you roll over the toes, you lift up the chest, and in this variation you keep the thighs away from the mat. And then from this space we go straight back to downward facing dog. So you push into the hands, you connect the center of the body core, lifting and rolling over those toes with straight bodies back to our downward facing dog. So that is the Chaturanga version of our Vinyasa. And as you know, must have noticed, I didn't go back to child's pose in this one. It was straight legs back to down dog. So I'll show you what happens when people get this a little wrong. So the breath in comes forward to plank. They sometimes forget to turn the elbows, so they may come with the elbows out. So turn the creases of the elbows forward, the eye of the elbow. And then quite often people dip too low with the chest and keep the bums too high. So what you need to be thinking of is keeping that body in a nice long line, trying just to hover off the mat. Then they roll over the toes, they lift up the chest, maybe they sink in the backs. Try and keep it nice and firm, shoulders down, the head lifted. And then from here, back to down dog. Now this can be that you step over the toes here to lift the hips, if toes aren't happy to be rolled over. So that is your option 3 for Chaturanga. Now, if you have got that shoulder strength to be able to take you through Chaturanga, then you can upgrade it into a option 4, which is one leg Chaturanga. So Ekapada Phalakasana, which is really, really strong movement through transitions. So I'll take you through that one as well now. This is really your progression to what a normal Vinyasa is. Whereas the 2 options at the beginning was slight regressions just to help you build up to the Vinyasa choice. So let's stack ourselves up again. So bring the hands shoulder width apart, bring the feet back to a plank position, shoulders over the heel of the hands, and then lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back. So thinking about the heels, the intention to get them to the floor, but they don't have to reach. Try not to fidget with the feet too much. Make sure that downward facing dog isn't too short like here. Yes, that means I can get my heels down, but it will cause me problems when I come forward in the Vinyasa. So make sure you've got the placement of the feet in a good space to allow the flow to happen. So option 4, Ekapada Chaturanga Vinyasa Flow. So we lift up with one leg. We come forward to a plank, so the hips come level with the shoulders. Turn the creases of the elbows and release down to hovering off the mat. You then hop off the toe of the back foot, bring the top leg down and lift up to that upward facing dog, thighs away, and then roll over the toes, lifting the hips, squeezing those heels back. And just notice I haven't tried to shift those feet forward to get the heels to the floor. So I'll take it on the left side as well. We always do the same on the left as we do on the right. So your breath in, we raise up with the left leg, come forward to a plank, turn the creases of the elbows forward, release to chaturanga. Hop off the back toes, drop that top leg, lift up the chest, thighs stay away. And then taking it back, rolling over the toes, core center switches on to lift those hips and squeeze those heels back. So they're the 4 options I tend to teach in my classes. You'll sometimes find that other teachers do slightly different things. There is also the option, which I tend to use in my sun salutations, where when you come forward to the plank and we drop the knees, instead of coming down slowly with the whole body, sometimes I get people to keep the hips high, still turn the creases of the elbows forward, bring the chest down to the floor and the chin, and then you roll through up and lift the chest. But I tend to use that more in sun salutations, which I'm going to bring to you on another day. So remembering that vinyasas are, if you break it up in Sanskrit, vin means to place, and yasa means in a special way. Move with intention, move breath to movement, and think of it as a flow. So these can actually be done first thing in the morning to help release all that connective tissue that gets a little bit sticky when you've been sleeping. So that's connective tissue is the fascia, which sits along the whole of the body, covers the whole of the muscles from the toes up to the crown of the head to the tips of the fingers. And this can get notoriously tight when you've been sleeping. And the way to loosen that off is just do some movement in different planes. This is a great one for flexion and extension of the spine. It helps with spinal mobility. It helps with spinal articulation. So give these a go, give them a try, play with them, play with the different options, mix them up, see what works for you. But remember, option 1 is a regression to help you build up to option 3 definitely, maybe option 4 in the future. And it will help build upper body strength. It won't particularly give you big muscles, but what it will do, it'll give you long, lean muscles, which are what we tend to work with a lot in yoga. We don't need big bulky arms, because when we're doing binds and things like that, we don't need to be working too much bulk in these areas. So give them a go. I hope you enjoyed the little show of how to work. Remembering key points: the eye of the elbow turns forward as you lower to the floor, because that allows those elbows to come and graze those ribs as you release, either down to the floor or to a hover. Remember, if you don't turn those creases, it becomes a gym plank, and that doesn't become comfortable for you, and it's not as stable as having those elbows grazing the ribs. Have peace in your thoughts, have peace in your words, have peace in your heart. From my heart to yours, namaste.